The views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily represent those of any organization, including One Generation Away.
The freedom of a people to choose its leaders is the root of liberty.
Keep alive this experiment in liberty.
Liberty, in case you've forgotten, is the soul's right to breathe.
Government should be very minimal in protecting liberty.
Peace cannot be purchased at the cost of liberty.
The sturdy ground of liberty.
Liberty once lost is lost forever.
Fight for their liberty and for our security.
Guarantees individual liberty.
This great republic, born alone in liberty.
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 Liberty. Liberty.
Just how much do you want liberty?
This is Liberty Nation with Tim Donner,
a production of LibertyNation.com.
cutting through the double talk, taking on the topics, going after what the politicians really mean, and making it all clear. For your freedom and your liberty. Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
January 20th beckons, and the transition from Donald Trump to Joe Biden is about as stark as could be. A return to the days and ways of establishment rule, or perhaps a sharp turn to the left, is just days away. But one thing's for sure, it won't be America first or make America great again. And today, we will examine how the politics and culture of the country is likely to change upon the return of the number two man in the Obama administration and the departure of arguably, or perhaps inarguably, the most controversial president in American history. And so we unleash our first 2021 Liberty Nation Radio B&B panel, the best and brightest from LibertyNation.com. Joining us in this special pre-inaugural B&B panel are political columnist Joe Schaeffer, socio-political correspondent Jeff Charles, and Heartland correspondent Sarah Cowgill. Sarah, let's start with you and the outgoing president. The Trump brand has certainly taken a hit since the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol as the Electoral College vote was being tallied. How do you think this will affect support for Trump once he becomes a private citizen again?
I think that's going to depend on what the president does when he does become a private citizen again. I mean, he's already boycotting the inauguration and nobody blames him for that. And, you know, I think his supporters are still pro-Trump. They believe that there has been, you know, a bad election. The results are not legitimate. And so you're not going to see a lot of people dropping off of there. You might see some of the people that have been on the fence all along about Trump begrudgingly saying, oh, well, you know, his economy's doing well, but he's so rude or he's bombastic or he needs to stay off of Twitter. Those people, yeah, they're just, you know, they're going to always be the grumpy Joes in the process. But the people who really are his support, I don't think you're going to see them going anywhere. I think they'll follow him. And I think they'll follow, you know, if he embraces a new kind of candidate to step up, if he embraces the fact that he might want to run again, I think his people will follow him.
So, Jeff, there's no longer any question that there will be retribution against Trump and his supporters across the country and likely in Congress. It's just a matter of how and how much. What form do you think this retribution will take?
Yeah, Tim, I think it's going to take a lot of different forms, pretty much any form that the left can think of. I mean, they were already talking about wielding a lawfare campaign against the president once he gets out of office. There's a lot of lawsuits that they plan on pushing. They're going to be looking into his business dealings. They want to harass him for as long as possible. When it comes to GOP lawmakers, I mean, they're already introducing legislation to expel them because they dared to go through a legal process to object to some of the results of the presidential election. But even when it comes to people who worked in the White House, I mean, you've got people like the Lincoln Project who is trying to get in the good graces of the left and keeps failing. They just announced that they're going to be taking names. They're going to be not releasing private information, but their objective is to try to ruin their careers going forward. So it's going to take a lot of different forms. I'm not sure how successful they'll be. I suspect that they won't be too successful. but they are going to try to hurt people affiliated with Trump as much as they possibly can.
Okay, so now we go to you, Joe. How should Trump voters, law-abiding citizens, process and respond to the reality of a Biden presidency when so many of them believe he's an illegitimate president?
Well, they need to realize that this is a hostile situation. The Biden forces, which is really, it's a uniparty power grab, and they need to realize anything they do is going to be micromanaged to fit into a narrative to attack them. So the opposition needs to be disciplined and organized, peaceful, of course, which it largely is, 99% is, but it also needs to identify who its friends are and who its opponents are. Most of the Republicans in Congress are not the opposition to this uniparty power grab. Mitch McConnell is part of this incoming administration for all practical purposes. So it is an America First opposition. It's hard to use the word loyal opposition when the powers to be want to destroy you. How can you be loyal when they want to destroy you? So they need to identify who their friends are, who their opponents are, organize, and have a cohesive, coherent response. And it starts with primarying Republicans in 2022. That's still a couple years away, but you have to build up to that. You have to start building the machinery up to that. And it all leads to that organized, cohesive America First response to what is going to be a hostile situation.
Okay, Sarah, let's pursue this idea of the loyal opposition a little bit. I think it's a stretch to call what the Democrats were these last 4 years loyal opposition. But now the script is flipped, and it's up to the Republicans. How are they going to handle the position of the loyal opposition after everything that's gone down?
Well, you're gonna find a bunch of angry people still out there. As much as we saw that after the 2016 election, with 2 years solid of just crying and wailing and howling at the moon and banging on Supreme Court doors and showing up as handmaids. I mean, these people were Looney Tunes for 2 years. And then when they took the House, they got busy. They're going to get busy. All they're going to do is fight against Trump people. But they're dealing with people who are saying, bring it on. They're not afraid of this. They are not afraid of the Democrats coming after them. They're afraid they won't. So I don't think you're going to see a lot of people backing off and going underground and staying out of the we support Trump limelight. As far as I can see, that Trump base is still out there, still strong, still very vocal.
Jeff, my question to you would be, after what happened at the U.S. Capitol, the riot, the shootings, the deaths, is violence likely to increase because of this event, or is it likely to decrease?
Yeah, so I don't expect to see much more from the right when it comes to political violence. It's not something that we as normal conservatives actually do. You might have a few incidents here and there, but unfortunately for the media, which would love for this to happen, I don't think it's going to be a thing. Now, this doesn't mean that groups like Antifa are going to let up. I think that maybe they'll focus their energy in a different way. They hated Biden, but they hated Trump more. So, I mean, and on top of that, with the base on the right that is energized, we're still going to be having our events. We're still going to be doing our thing, and Antifa will still show up to try to stop that. So I don't know if there's going to be much of a decrease in political violence. I think maybe during the summer of this year we might see some more of it, but like I was saying, I don't expect a whole lot more from the right. I think we may have learned our lesson. I think that this was a wake-up call for the right.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue with our best and brightest B&B panel from LibertyNation.com, looking forward to the Joe Biden presidency and back at the Trump administration. And we'll focus in this next segment on racial division.
Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com. With one click, you get tomorrow's news today with LNTV's hot topics and analysis, Liberty Nation Radio, The Uprising and Rabbit Hole podcasts, and dozens of insightful original articles. And now you can keep your kids ahead of the curve with LNGenZ.com. LN Gen Z brings a free-thinking education right into your home for students of every grade level with articles, videos, worksheets, and ready-to-go curriculum. While the media establishment giants are sleeping, you can stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com and get tomorrow's news today. LibertyNation.com.
We believe that all men are entitled to the blessings of liberty.
This is Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
We are back with our Liberty Nation Radio B&B panel, the best and brightest from LibertyNation.com. Political columnist Joe Schaeffer, socio-political correspondent Jeff Charles, and Heartland correspondent Sarah Cowgill, discussing the stark transition from President Donald Trump to a President Joe Biden. And now we'll focus on racial strife in this country and whether it's likely to get better or worse when Joe Biden becomes president. Jeff, let's go to you. Racial division got far worse during the Trump administration. I think all sides agree on that. Parcel out the blame for this and tell us how things are likely to get better or worse in a Biden presidency.
Yeah, so some people aren't going to like me saying this, but I mean, when it comes to racial strife, I mean, from what I've seen, there are people on both sides who are making this worse. Trump doesn't always handle these things perfectly, although I don't think he's nearly as bad as the left tries to portray him as. But Trump is not the one who has been fomenting racial tension every single day. I believe the lion's share of the blame goes to the activist media, which is heavily invested in making blacks, whites, Latinos, Asians be at odds with one another. They want there to be, they want us at each other's throats. So that's why every single day they were talking about how the nation is such a racist nation. They're trying to change the history with the 1619 Project to say everything is based on race. Trump isn't doing that. Conservatives aren't doing that. So when it comes to the lion's share of the blame, I say it's the activist media and Democrats in general. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody on the left is on board with this, but the people who have the microphones on the left, they are the ones who are fomenting a lot of this racial strife.
So, Joe, how capable is Joe Biden of leading a nation arguably more divided than any time since the Civil War?
Doesn't matter. It's not his job. It's not what he's there for. Again, I'll say this is a uniparty power move. They learned in 2016 that they are not popular with the American people. And so they realized the way to stay in power is to make these wholly illegitimate power moves, this fraud-riddled election. We had a man who didn't even campaign. He ran a non-campaign of a campaign, got installed, and now look at what has happened. They've used the coronavirus. They're using this right-wing violence. We keep hearing it. Trump riots, insurrection, violence, violence, violence. And what are they doing? They're literally putting fences around the halls of government. This is our government. In Washington state, they opened their state legislature on Monday with a fence ringed around the Capitol. An official state police official said, this is the new normal for government. This is what they want. They want to separate themselves from the people. The coronavirus is a great way to come up with that. This playing up this right-wing thing, overhyping it to a ridiculous extent, that works into it. All of this works into it. Joe Biden is the perfect, he's like a role model for every politician moving forward in the swamp. I don't even have to be popular and I could become president. Wow. Where is this going to end up? Where is this going to lead? So it's not about uniting the country. It is about further removing our elites from us. And that is what is going to happen over the next couple of years.
So, Sarah, how are the good folks of the heartland who were so energized by Trump prepared to react to this new president, given that he was essentially elected on the strength of his support on the left and right coasts?
They're not happy. And, the one thing I do see a lot of on social media and the circles that I follow, to keep a pulse straight on what's going on here in the flyover states, is people have waited 4 years to say, not my president. And they're not embracing him. They're not going to even they're not even going to give him a chance. They keep bringing up 47 years of inaction. They keep bringing up all of the bumbles along the way, all of the crazy things he said to constituents. And most people are just waiting for him to never speak publicly and just bow out and let, Ms. Harris take over. The red states are entrenched. They believe thoroughly, just to the core of their being, that the election was stolen. And whether or not they are correct, they're going to stay right there in that belief, and they're going to fight. They're not going to back down. These aren't the people that take their balls and go home. These are the people that go home, they retreat, they reload, they come back.
The polls show that over half of the voters who voted for Biden were really just voting against Trump. They're not crazy about Biden. And Biden's going to he's already having to play this game where he has to kind of kowtow to the establishment and kowtow to the far left. He's going to be walking that line for a while. And plus, he has a vice president who is very far to the left, one of the most left-wing senators in the chamber. And it's not going to be easy for him. But like you said, I don't expect him to serve out his full first term. I think he only ran to see if he can knock Trump off. And this is their way of getting Kamala Harris into office, because you saw how poorly she did during the Democratic primaries. Nobody likes her. And I don't care what they say, not even black people like her. You got black women that like her. Black men, no, not so much. She was selected to appeal to white progressive women or white liberal women in the suburbs. So I think this is their way of getting her in, because she is very far to the left. And she is more of a, what if I'm going to be charitable, she is more of a pragmatist. She kind of goes by the way the winds go. So she'd probably be easier to control as well.
Okay, Joe, I got a straightforward question for you. What are the chances that Joe Biden actually makes it through 2 years as president of the United States?
I think 50-50. I think this was the plan all along. I think she was selected very much. You go back to in 2017, one of these progressive groups had a conference, and she personally introduced via video George Soros. So she is in the network. She was selected, and she wasn't popular in the primaries. They pushed her forward. They did everything to say she's top tier, and she fell flat on her face. She had a moment in the spotlight, and she completely wilted. And then all of a sudden, she's the vice presidential, Democratic nominee. Added nothing to the ticket, nothing. If you're thinking in terms of reaching out to Middle America, which supposedly was the way they were going to win the election, we know how they won the election is through inner cities in these key battleground states with highly unusual late night ballot dumps. So, it just seems she was selected. She was put there. And to me, the plan is always been to install her as the president. And they're not going to be patient with Joe Biden for very long because, what does he really bring to them? I think the plan all along was to have Kamala Harris as president.
We're going to take a quick break and then come back and continue our discussion on the transition from Trump to Biden. When we return, how to heal the deep divisions in the nation and in both parties.
Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Far more important than my political future and far more important than yours, the well-being of our country.
This is Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
We are back with our best and brightest, our B&B panel from LibertyNation.com, political columnist Joe Schaeffer, socio-political correspondent Jeff Charles, and Heartland correspondent Sarah Cowgill, discussing how things will change when Joe Biden takes over the Oval Office from Donald Trump. And the most basic decision Biden has to make is whether to head to the left or tack more to the center. Joe, let's go to you. Both parties are deeply divided right now, just like the nation itself. Biden has an essential choice. Go hard left with this small window of 2 years when the Democrats control both chambers of Congress and can try to pack the court, add new states, eliminate the Senate filibuster, do all manner of climate change legislation. Or do they go establishment, sort of back to the days of Obama?
This establishment all the way. They're going to throw some trinkets to the progressives because they needed them to get through the Democratic primaries and have their uneasy alliance. It's a very uneasy alliance. And I predict that the progressives are going to turn on the Biden administration very fast. We'll see to what degree that happens. But this is I said this is a uniparty coup. They want to get back to looting our treasury, lining their own pockets, helping their corporate donors. Joe Biden, we know, is attached to the hip of China. So you're going to see an effort. It's very popular now to bash China. So he's got to be careful with this. But you're going to see him slowly moving to overturn Trump's actions against China over the past 4 years. And this is going to be a big story because the American people are waking up to the China threat inside our own country, the internal threat. And the uniparty wants to do business with China. That's where they make their money. That's where their corporations make their money. So you want to divide the American people saying, whoa, what's happening here with our national security? China is inside our borders. And the uniparty to swamp the Biden administration, Mitch McConnell, all of them saying, boy, I can't wait to get back to doing business with China. That's the divide. That's what's going to be big. And these people, they're motivated by money. And that is what is going to define the Biden administration moving forward, money.
Okay, so Sarah, I'm going to give you the same question. Both parties deeply divided. Democrats, they have the presidency, both chambers of Congress. With that, does Joe Biden go hard left or does he tack to the center?
I'm going to disagree with Joe here. And I love how you laid that out, Joe, because it's so plausible. But I also know that this is a rubber stamp time. And if they want to appease progressives, now's the time to do it. So they're going to rubber stamp as much as they possibly can on all the crazy stuff, on all the climate change and everything that they can possibly do. Because in 2 years, that house is going to flip. And when that happens, they're out of business again. So they're going to spend 2 years just trying to make everybody happy. And then they can go back in 2 years when that house flips and go, yeah, I heard you loud and clear. And they'll tack back to the center. It's a classic strategy. Bill Clinton did this in his first year, in his first term. He did the exact same thing. He went crazy. He let Hillary make all the decisions. I mean, people were up in arms and ticked off. And by his State of the Union after midterms, he literally said, I hear you. I know, this, I hear you. And he flipped and he went right back to being a centrist. So I think you're going to see.
You mean when he said the era of big government is over? Not.
No, when we took back the house. Anyway, but I think that you're going to see, some crazy stuff coming through a rubber stamp in between all of the attacks and investigations on, President Trump.
Okay, Jeff. Well, I guess you get to break the tie because Joe said he expects Joe Biden to go to the center towards the establishment direction. Sarah says he'll go hard left. What do you say?
I think I might be splitting the baby just slightly because I do still think that the establishment still wants to maintain control. So I do think they're going to throw a lot of bones to the far left, to the progressives, to the radical extremists. I think that they're going to try to push through a lot of that stuff, but the progressives are not going to get everything that they want here because there are still enough Democrats in the Senate and in the House that won't want to go that far because they don't want to get voted out. So I do think that, Bernie Sanders is going to be heading to the Senate Budget Committee. So, I think they're going to be throwing some bones to the far left. But as far as their wackier ideas, I don't think they're going to be able to get rid of the Electoral College. I don't think they're going to be able to make Puerto Rico and D.C. into states. They might push for that, but they will get some of the other stuff that they want that isn't quite as extreme. But yeah, I do think that the establishment, and really on both sides, we're seeing the establishment trying to assert themselves. But I think the Democratic establishment is going to fare better than the Republican establishment because they already have that control. And really, their constituents don't want all that crazy stuff. So I think that at the end of the day, the establishment still maintains control, but progressives will still complain, but they'll still get more of what they want if it were a different story in both chambers of Congress.
So, guys, I wrote a column on LibertyNation.com recently entitled, "With No Trump to Kick Around, What Will Unite the Democrats?" I mean, this is a party where the left and the establishment made bed only through their common hatred of Donald Trump. So the question is now, with no Trump to kick around, what will unite the Democrats?
For Puritan, again, you have to discover what their goals are. I don't agree that their goals are this progressive agenda. I think what you have here is that the establishment can be fine with the progressive agenda. They can use them to get where they want to go. So it's like, okay, you want transgender bathrooms? That's fine with me. Do I still get to pocket my dirty corporate money? I do? Fine. You can't work with the America First people because they actually have principles opposed to this stuff. It's like, no, we don't want you pocketing this dirty corporate money. We want you taking care of the American people first. Well, that you can't work with that if you're the establishment. But the progressives, throwing them trinkets, throwing them things, it all depends how you define it. In a way, I think all three of us with our comments were right, because it all depends on how you define it. They can work with the progressives. They can give them what they want to a degree as long as they get what they want overall, which is to continue ruling over us. So again, to get back to what you asked me way in the beginning, the America First opposition has to realize this, has to organize with this in mind, has to have very specific goals to combat this, because they will be able to ally with the Republican, with the rhinos, and with the leftists whenever it suits their purposes. So it's going to be a hard task to combat this for the America First people, and they have to be smart about it, and they have to be very, very organized. I keep using that term, but that is what they have to do.
I don't know. They're not doing anything right now that seems like they're planning any kind of forward movement. All they're talking about is Trump. Trump's got 8 days. All they're talking about is Trump, 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 Trump. I mean, they're still in the feeding frenzy stage. And, I don't know. I think they're going to be so happy to be in power that they're not going to fight as much. The thing I see, though, and I could be dead wrong, but I think the Republican Party is dead in the water. I think it's been split in two, and I don't think there's a way to repair it. So what we saw 4 years ago with the Democrats beating each other up, and we thought that they couldn't come back, I think the Republicans can't come back in 4 years. I don't see it happening. I don't know what's going to happen in 2 years, but there's so much anger on the right side, on the conservative side, that nobody's going to be healed anytime soon. Now, the Democrats, I think that they have decided, let's kiss and make up. But I think you're also going to see, with the razor thin margin that Nancy got back in with the gavel, she was kind of on her way out. So there's a lot of noise over there. They may look united, but I'm not sure it's 100% what, the optics are 100% what's really behind the scenes.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break, then come back with one more shot with our Liberty Nation Radio B&B panel as we discuss the changes in the culture that are likely to occur when Joe Biden ascends to the presidency.
Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
Stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com. With one click, you get tomorrow's news today with LNTV's Hot Topics and Analysis, Liberty Nation Radio, The Uprising and Rabbit Hole podcasts, and dozens of insightful original articles. And now, you can keep your kids ahead of the curve with LNGenZ.com. LN Gen Z brings a free-thinking education right into your home for students of every grade level with articles, videos, worksheets, and ready-to-go curriculum. While the media establishment giants are sleeping, you can stay ahead of the curve with LibertyNation.com and get tomorrow's news today. LibertyNation.com.
We believe that all men are entitled to blessings of liberty.
This is Liberty Nation with Tim Donner.
We are back with one more bite at the apple with our Liberty Nation Radio B&B panel, the best and brightest from LibertyNation.com. Political columnist Joe Schaeffer, socio-political correspondent Jeff Charles, and Hardland correspondent Sarah Cowgill, discussing the stark transition from President Donald Trump to a President Joe Biden starting this very week. And the Trump uprising of 2016 was one not just of politics, but of culture, with millions of people getting energized by politics that had all but given up. So, Sarah, we'll go to you. While the politics will certainly change drastically from Trump to Biden, the culture might change just as much or more. How do you think a Biden presidency, together with the Democrats' razor-thin majorities in the House and Senate, will impact the culture over these next 2 or 4 years?
Well, I think you're going to see a lot less posturing. That was something that everybody grabbed a hold of their little 5 minutes of fame in any of the committee hearings that were televised. I think you'll see a little bit less of that and a lot of, oh, you're so right, and oh, it's so good, we're united. And I think they're going to try to convince people that since, this presidency, this administration has taken over, that the whole country is getting behind, and the only people that aren't behind this great administration are those, fringies on the right that are racist and walking around with swastikas and Confederate flags. And that's not going to be the case. They're going to try to convince us that's the case, but that's not going to be the case. This country is divided, and it's divided between, the people that voted for Joe Biden and the people that voted for Donald Trump. You're not going to see any kind of, off the reservation on either side of that. Although the media and the Democrats will try to convince us that everybody's happy. We're all happy now. We're happy.
Okay, Joe. What can we surmise about the Biden presidency from the cabinet and the attorney general that he has nominated?
They're rife with globalists if you look at it all the way. I mean, look at his core advisors. They're all committed to working internationally. They talk about all these agreements, TPP and all that. Anthony Blinken is a huge promoter of this Secretary of State nominee. All of his top aides, Avril Haines is a top aide. They're committed to this internationalism, and it makes them natural allies with Bill Gates, big tech, and all that. So when you look at what is this administration, it's not just his cabinet. It's this whole umbrella, this whole new power structure that is big tech, that is big philanthropy, that is Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, and is the media. It's like a gigantic nexus. And this is the administration. This is the incoming administration.
Well, maybe Joe Biden should adapt a version of Donald Trump's MAGA slogan. Just take out great, put in global, and you've got MAGA still. Make America global again. But Jeff, one of the positive things out of this election for Republicans was that they did increase their minority vote. Donald Trump put a lot of effort into ramping up his popularity in the Hispanic and Black communities. How do you think this changes the GOP going forward?
Yeah, it does provide a huge opportunity. Trump laid out a template that they can build on. But as we all know, the Republican Party tends to miss opportunities or never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. So it's still too early to tell. I'm hoping that what Trump did kind of wakes them up and gets them to see, hey, maybe we can start making some inroads here. I mean, because they have to at this point. That this is part of it being a new party and a new conservative movement. If they don't, then we won't be relevant in 20, 30 years. So hopefully that they are waking up to that, and hopefully they're waking up to it in a way that they're going to actually start taking it seriously instead of just paying lip service to it, because that's what they've been doing over the past few years. Trump hasn't, but the Republican Party has. They always make it seem like, oh yeah, we're trying to reach out to minorities when they're really lying about it. They're not really trying. Hopefully this will spark something in them, or spark something in the rest of us to force them to do it.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to conclude the program with each of you selecting what you think will be the biggest single change from the Trump administration to the Biden presidency. And Sarah, you get to go first.
Well, first thing right off the bat, I think there's not going to be any more fact checking by fact checkers on every social media platform and with every newspaper and with every cable outlet. I don't think it's going to happen anymore. I think they're just going to go, no, he's always telling the truth. There's no lie meters. There's no Pinocchios. So I think we'll see a demise in that. I also think you're going to see the fact that people are fed up with having, censorship shoved down their throats. So a lot of people have been bailing out of some of the major social media outlets and are looking to land in another place. I think that's going to happen quite frequently. But I do think that, we'll just see the glowing and the gushing from corporate media over this phenomenal administration that is so thoughtful and well planned out and so united, and it's united the country. And I think we're going to have that shoved down our throats and until we, either tell the right story or there's more of an uprising from the electorate. And that's got to happen. It's got to happen. It can't come from the minorities in the media. It's got to come from the electorate pushing the narrative.
Okay, Joe, same question to you. What do you see as the biggest single change from Trump to Biden?
I think it's going to be night and day from the populist Trump, the I'm with you. This is a movement, Donald Trump, to the Gretchen Whitmer style nanny scolding. I hate to do this. Unfortunately, we have to do this. And then they do exactly what they want to do, which is cracking down on the American people in a way that gets their agenda to be advanced. And you're going to see it on everything, on these progressive things that they're going to push, like climate change, etc. Like, oh, we hate to ask you to do this, but we're going to raise taxes through the roof. We're going to do this. And it's going to be a nanny scold thing. Gretchen Whitmer in many ways is the template for Democrats moving forward. She doesn't have to be popular with a great swath of her state, as long as she can sit back there protected in her state capital and lecture to the residents of the state like they're children. I think that you're going to see in power this administration trying to treat the American people like children, and we'll see how much of it the American people will swallow.
Okay, Jeff, you get to go last. Final question. What will be the biggest change from the Trump presidency to the Biden administration?
I think it will be the effort to minimize opposition voices. I think, like Sarah was saying, they're going to want to set this up to where Biden is uniting us all and everybody's happy and everybody's great. So in order to do that, they have to silence us as much as they possibly can. I don't think that they're going to succeed, but the result is going to be a more divided nation. What's going to happen, especially with social media, conservatives are slowly going to start migrating elsewhere. We're going to start buying our own hosting services so that the left can't come after our platforms like they did with Parler, which, by the way, them trying to destroy Parler was the opening salvo for 2021. They're not done yet. They're going to keep going with this. And in the end, conservatives will still have our voices on the internet, but it's going to be a lot more siloed, which is exactly what the elites on both sides want. They want us more divided. If we're not talking to each other, we become more divided. So I hate to be doom and gloom, but I think it's, as far as this stuff is concerned, it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Okay, lady and gents, I want to thank each of you for participating in this B&B panel, our first in 2021. And that is it for Liberty Nation Radio, but we'll be back at you next week. Same time, same station. Till then, this is Tim Donner saying stand up for liberty. And we'll see you next time on Liberty Nation Radio.